Hey everyone, today we are going to be playing with the Alphacool Eiswolf GPX Pro. This was sent to us by one of our viewers and readers, Eric. So thank you, Eric, for sending this in for test. So this thing will go on the bench. We're doing a thermal bench with it. This is basically a liquid cooling mod for the GTX 1080, at least the one that we have. There are different variants of this, but that's what was sent to us. So we're going to be throwing that onto a Founders Edition GTX 1080, which I've got here already dismantled. That'll go on there. In the next video and final video, there's only two parts, we'll be testing the thermals. So a couple things to look at there. One will be the GPU core temperature. Has it gone down? Probably. Two is I'm going to be looking at the MOSFET temperatures. So I've got thermocouples on the card that will be held by adhesive. But before getting to the build, this is brought to you by our Patreon backers. Patreon.com/GamersNexus will bring you to our Patreon page where you can help out with future videos like this one. So let's get into it. The build, basically, a couple things to keep in mind here. One is we've got the cooler to put on. Two, I already ran this through a bunch of tests with an EVGA hybrid cooler. So this is basically the same as what we did with our original 1080 hybrid build series, but I did update it. It's gone through some changes. So this was thrown back on there, run through the bench. That'll be in the next video, all that data. And I did log this time the VRM temps for one of the MOSFETs in the center of the card. That would be the third counting from the bottom up. And then the PCB backplate temperature, just like we did for the EVGA VRM thermals testing. So that's been logged on with GPU core, all that stuff. So after that, we'll be testing this, and we'll be testing the EK version, which I've got pre-filled water blocks for this EK Predator over here. And the EK Predator is a QDC system, so it's got quick release setup for the tubing, which you can see here for the Eiswolf as well. And these, you basically just plug them straight into whatever else is compatible. So we actually don't have to do anything in terms of open loop setup. You don't need your own liquid. So it's time to install this. Basically the process is pretty straightforward. The Eiswolf comes with a actually really well illustrated guide, and it's got some templates in there for cutting thermal pads to size. Why they're not just already cut to size, I don't know. But some of them are, some aren't. And it's probably just a cost thing. So we've got different thermal pads. These come in a purple or pink bag, and they're smaller. These are for VRAM modules. Those come in this bag. If you buy one of those yourself, that's what you would use for VRAM. And these also come with them in the same bag. This is used for the rest of the VRM. So that would be some of the FETs, get those on them over on the right side of the card, and the voltage converter, power stages, stuff like that. So we'll be doing that in a moment. And then the rest of the hardware, couple of obviously Allen keys, some Allen screws, some larger Allen screws, 3 washers that are used for the securing the cooler to the card, and larger screws. So the hard part of this has already been done. I've taken the old cooler off. If you're not sure how to do that, you can check an article on our website. Just do a search for Gamers Nexus 1080 teardown, and it's not necessarily easy. It's not hard. If you're doing it blind, it's kind of hard though, and you can damage things. But if you know what you're doing and you have the steps in front of you, it's pretty simple. It's just a ton of screws to take out. The 1080 is a bit more complex than the other cards. So that's the original cooler. You can see all the thermal pads on it. It actually works pretty damn well. The VRM thermals are not that hot on this thing, which is a bit impressive, but also it's not a complex VRM. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Our parts, we've got, other than all the hardware, the backplate here. You want to be careful not to get any contaminants on the backplate or on the cold plate for the card. The backplate obviously goes on the back of the PCB. And then we've also got the actual cooler, which is this thing. So of course you have to take this off. And we'll just go ahead and do that now, since it's not going to need to be on there anymore. A couple scratches on the cold plate, but there's your cold plate, nickel plated, copper cold plate, I believe. We've got the rest of the heatsink here, huge fins, and then you're going to be pushing air through that just through your normal case cooling. It should be basically aids silent cooling, because this is a full water block. So you've got full coverage with the water block right here, the pump, and then your in and your out valves. So what happens is this will cool all the VRAM, and that's direct contact. There's no question about that. This touches what do we have here? We have an inductor cut out here, so this is where the inductors or the chokes go if you prefer. And then we've got points for the capacitor bank here, and for the VRM here, and for other components, VRM components, PWM, stuff like that over there. So this thing is full coverage. The only place that's not covered is the power header, but who cares about that? So that's what we've got to work with. I have to first install the thermal pads for the VRAM and part of the VRM. So to do this, you get your bare card, clean it off as necessary first. And in my case, I'm mounting some probes to this, but that's obviously not a step you'll normally do. So we get rid of all the plastic. Let's put this on. So my process here is basically take one of the pieces of plastic off and then put it down and then take the other one off. And we're probably going to have to reseal or reposition a bunch of these before the conclusion of putting the block on the card, but that's okay. Okay, so 8 VRAM thermal pads, that's done, that's taken care of. You're going to want to recheck them all before closing the thing up. Maybe do a surgeon's check and count all the plastic too, or just throw it out as you go rather than leave it on the table because you don't want to get stuck on here. So the next part, we have to cut these to size, these larger ones, and we're going to be putting a good chunk of one of them right around here, actually maybe just like that even, that would be nice. And then I've got Captain tape here, don't worry about it, it's not conductive, it's not really going to be a thermal issue, not going to impact the results. And then the other one, part of it will go here, which of course this will all be smushed down by the actual block. So it's going to be completely secure, completely smashed down, won't go anywhere. And this, even though it looks tall right now because it's sticking up, this is a super thin thermocouple probe. I've talked about this in the EVGA video. It's not really going to impact the transfer of heat, so don't worry about that. But this pad, the one that we're cutting, we are going to be cutting into 5 parts, it looks like, total. Or at least cutting one of them into 4 and then the other one into the 5th part. So they have a template in here. This is actually really cool, and I will praise Alphacool for doing this on the Eiswolf. You've got your template here. We're going to be cutting it into a, it looks like a 20 by 20, a 10 by 20, a 10 by 15, and a 5 by 10. Those are our cuts for this thing. And I do have digital calipers, but because they've kind of got it marked, I don't know that I'll really use them or need them. And then the other one will cut to this 5 size. So let's go ahead and start with the harder one. So I am going to mark it here, mark it here. Okay, I think I need the box cutter instead. Box cutter works well for this. Sweet, okay. Okay, there's our 5. Okay, there's our 10 by 20. And then we've got a 20 by 20 right there. So that'll cover most of our VRM. We've got to cut one more piece. Where did it go? Oh yeah, there it is. So there's the other one. This one is a 20 by 30. This one's pretty large. I wish they had the guides on both sides of this thing. So now we're covering the VRM components. So number 5 was the large cut. That one is going to be covering the top half of our MOSFETs. And if you look at the diagram, it basically comes up right in between these two inductors. So that's where it'll be. And that'll probably be a little annoying for me to hold in place while I get the rest of it on there, but it should be fine for anyone who is not worrying about thermocouples. So that's part of it, and then that will be the other part. Want to make sure you're on top of the MOSFETs. So these little black rectangle squares next to the inductors, this is an inductor. These are chokes. Those don't need to be covered with thermal pads. They are just fine. But make sure you cover those black squares next to them. Not these. That's the capacitor bank. Don't worry about that just yet. We're covering those MOSFETs. So that's where those go. And then our cut number 4, which is the smallest one, goes next to this tiny capacitor over here. And that covers, okay, right there next to the capacitor. And then number 3 and number 1, which one is larger? Number 1 is larger. Number 1 goes up here on the VRAM, and this one will go over here next to the inductor. And you want to leave breathing room for that screw hole, because we're going to use that later. So that's where those will go. I'm going to sit here and apply these for a minute, and then we'll jump to the next part. All right, so at this point, it's time to get the thermal paste on there. This is the thermal compound they provide. Pretty big tube of it, assuming it's actually full. We've got our own. I'm not sure what their thermal conductivity is. Ours may be better than Alphacool's, but we're going to go ahead and use Alphacool's for now. Okay. GPUs, by the way, as I say all the time, be a little generous with the thermal compound on them. It's not the same as the CPU where too much is going to impact your thermal contact. There's no IHS here, so you want it to cover the entirety of that surface with absolutely no missing spots at all. So it's better to have a bit too much than any amount too little. So this is going to go on just like this. And on the back side, these thermocouples do complicate things a bit. On the back side, we're going to be using 3 screws to hold it in. And we also need to, if you haven't already, peel off the thing that covers this, clean it if it's not clean, if it's got fingerprints on it, and then it's time to apply it. Let's see. I'm just going to run my thermocouple out the bottom, because I want to make sure it's not crossing any inductors or anything like that. Okay, there's contact. I'm going to kind of push it down to secure it in place and to secure all of those thermal pads. So that's what we end up with. Now we need to start sealing it. All right, so this part you need 3 of the shorter Allen screws and put the washer on them. They've given us tools already, not the greatest in the world, but whatever. So 3, 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be the one right above the keying on the PCIe slot. Then you skip the next one, and then the one in the middle of the card, and then the one at the top on the opposite side. Okay, that's gotta go. Okay, contact with the GPU. VRAM contact for sure. One of the VRAM pads fell out. That's obnoxious. This probably means I'm gonna have to like reposition all those pads. Just give me a second. Only one of them moved. No, 2 moved. Okay. Okay, they're fine. Those those are fine. Please be magnetized. Damn it. That one's good. Oh, that one's... No, that's okay. Backplate. Interesting that it didn't have us use all the screws. One can definitely go there. Okay, all right, cool. So we've got all 4 of our screws in finally. And now we need to disperse the brown thermal pads, or orange as they declare on their paper. I think one of these, annoyingly, has to be cut to size as well. So VRAM, 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 VRAM. Gonna go one on the back of each of these. And we're gonna put a blue dead center on the GPU, which I suppose I'll do last. And this, for the record, is really kind of unnecessary, this level of adhesive, but in theory, it's gonna be one of the coolest cards we could possibly make, so let's go ahead and go through with it. These don't have to be perfect. Pretty low temperature part of the board. Next, we got to cut one of these up again. Okay, there's our 5. Okay, large piece. Where's the large piece going? Right where the thermocouple is. So they want these on the back side of the MOSFETs, which makes sense. And this large one will basically align with the top 2 VRAM thermal pads, and it's going to be next to, just inside of the border of these 2 screws. That's how you can kind of think about it. And then the next largest one is going, in my orientation, below that. It's going to be towards the PCIe slot. Again, really would be nice if they just did one larger thermal pad, but it's for cost reasons, so. Okay, cool. One more pad. 2 more pads, just kidding. Okay, so this one goes right on the back of the GPU, center of the GPU. It's a bit stickier, thankfully, so it's easier to work with. And then the very last one, finally, goes along with the memory VRM, which is going to be up here. So there's our memory VRM pad. Okay, final piece, backplate. We need to line up the 4 large screws with where we're securing the GPU pump. So this will go just like that. I'm gonna apply pressure to get everything kind of situated and so it doesn't move again. Okay, so they've given us some extras here, which I know normally sounds like you forgot a step, but that is not the case here. We're gonna end up with 2 extra, I think 2 extra, maybe 1 extra large screw, and then it looks like 1 extra small screw. So as with any screw, the rule here, hand tight, not gorilla tight, or if you prefer monkey tight, not gorilla tight. These do not need to be crazy tight. Just if it goes in easily, then great. Go until it stops. Don't apply a whole bunch of extra force because it's not necessary. All right. Cool. So now that we've got it closed up, I'm going to go ahead and look down everywhere and make sure that no thermal pads are loose in there and that they've actually stuck to the surfaces. And those VRAM pads are all good. Every single one of them is on a module. So nothing has moved there. The back of the GPU is good. Back of the VRAM is good. Cool. So we'll call that a success. So there you have it. There's the Alphacool Eiswolf. We're going to put this in a system now and test it. connect these QDCs up as appropriate, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so that's our project. That is the Alphacool Eiswolf. We'll be testing this pretty soon. It's normal for 1 to 2 drops of water to leak from this as it's connected to whatever solution you're using, whether that's open loop or otherwise. And then at that point, it's time to test it. So I should have results for you in a couple of days, and we'll be looking at this versus the hybrid version that we built versus the EKWB version, for which I have a pre-filled water block. So as always, links in the description below. If you want to find a link to this device, you can find it down there. Wait for the review maybe if you're going to buy it. And as always, Patreon link, the postal video to help us out directly. Subscribe for more. Thanks to Eric for loaning us the Eiswolf. I'll see you all next time.